Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. We will start the webinar in just a moment. I see some folks are still coming into the room. So sit tight and we will begin shortly. And as folks are continuing to come in, I will just give one quick note of housekeeping. On your webinar panel, you will see a questions section where you can type in any questions that come to mind during the webinar. We will answer those questions at the end. So feel free to do that. And we will get started in just a minute. I still see some folks coming into the room, so we'll just give it a minute and then we'll get started. I'm sure you're all enjoying the chorus of my dogs working remotely. All right, I want to be cognizant of time. It is 7:01, so as people are still coming in, they can join us in progress. This is our It's Learning webinar on remote learning for parents, helping your child succeed in a virtual world. My name is Rachel Riggio. I am the Customer Success Manager at It's Learning, so I welcome you all tonight. Thank you for coming. This webinar is for you if your child's school is closed and he or she is learning remotely using the It's Learning platform. This webinar is also for you if your child's school, district, organization is thinking about moving to remote learning using the It's Learning platform, or if you're just looking for some resources and ways to help you work with your children in any way during these unprecedented times that we have found ourselves in. By the end of this webinar, you will understand how to shoulder surf, and I did not coin that term, but it's a great term, with your child and understand how the student views its learning, and that is if you do not have the parent portal turned on in your school or district. You will get an overview of the It's Learning parent portal. If you do have that turned on and you have a login, that piece is definitely for you. You will get some tips to help your child while learning remotely. You'll hear from a few other parents about their experiences during this time period, and you'll get some resources that you can take away from this to help you work with your child at home. So we'll divide tonight's webinar into 3 pieces. The first piece, we're going to leave this presentation and pop into the student view of It's Learning and take a tour of that. And then we'll pop into the parent portal view and take a bit of a tour there. We'll come back to the presentation then and go over just some general tips that we have found work nicely while helping your child through this time of learning remotely. And then our third piece of the webinar is to hear some experiences from parents out there who are going through this being teachers of their children for a good length of time. All right, so the student view, again, if the parent portal is not available at your school, hasn't been turned on, you can shoulder surf with your child. So they would log into It's Learning and they would show you what they're doing in the system, and you could review it with them like that. Then the parent portal view, you know you have the parent portal view turned on if you do have a separate login and you have a separate dashboard that you go to monitor your child's progress and assist them as necessary. So we're going to pop out of here for just a minute and we're going to pop into the student view of It's Learning. I'm logged in as Annabelle. And she's landed here on what we call our course cards. And these colorful squares have our course title on them and the student jumps into their course that way. Perhaps in your district, you may see your student land at something we call a dashboard for their school or district that gives them some other information. Those students can always go to their course list and access their courses that way. So I'm going to jump into our grade 3 science course here and give you a very quick tour of this, as your student can also give you a tour when you log in with them. So for the most part, you will probably see your teachers using the plans tool. When a teacher dates the plans, they pop up on this student's overview page with a start button, and the students can click start and begin on the plan that the teachers have set out for them. To the right of the screen and to the upper corner, you're going to see some tasks. Some might be overdue, some might be due later, some might say no deadline, especially now during this time. Many teachers are relaxing their deadlines, so you may have quite a few tasks under a no deadline. The student will also see their completed tasks, anything that they've done already, and if they are being graded, they might see a score or just the feedback that the teachers are giving them. One caveat though, that when I work with teachers and kids, we try to get them not to dive right into their tasks, but to instead go through the plan, hitting the start button that the teacher has laid out for them. Also on this page, students might see events. I'm not sure we have any events in this situation, but teachers might, perhaps a video chat or something like that. They might also see information here put out by their teacher. There are announcements on this page, so the teacher can put simple text announcements, or they can pull featured resources here, or even videos that they might want the students to watch. So when you do log in with your student, make sure they kind of scroll down to see if the teacher has put anything here for them. So when I hit this start button, the start button takes me inside the plan. So typically a teacher will put out a description for the students. The students will know that they need to continue when they see this dark colored arrow to the right. So they'll hit that arrow and they'll go to the next piece in the plan, which is in this case standards. And they'll continue on, and they've gotten now to their first resource. And this resource has some embedded videos in it. It has some links out to websites for the students to get some information. So the student can spend as much time as they need on this, and they can also come back to this later. When they continue down, she has a quiz that she has to complete. They simply start test and go for it. When she's done with that, she continues on to a discussion board that she participates in. She can put her response and respond to others. And then she gets to her final assignment here that she'll complete. In this case, this is an assignment where she opens a Google Doc and works on it. Once she's done, she simply submits it. And then you'll notice that dark arrow has turned gray now, which means she's finished, and she X's out of that plan. So it's as simple as that. Your student can take you on a tour of that so you can see what they're doing. A couple other pieces that may be interesting to the students is the follow-up and reports section. There are standard progress reports that the students can get to. There's a grade book in here. But this report to me is interesting for the students, their personal report. So they can take a really quick glance at the things that they've looked at, quizzes they've taken, discussions they've participated in, their assignments that they've done. And if they see something here they haven't done, or they see a red X on a resource they haven't looked at, they know to go back and take a peek at that. In your district, a student may have 360 reports turned on. If they do, when they click there, they get a chance to see some statistics on their activity in the system. So they might see how many visits they've made to the system, how long they're staying in the system. We have something called a heat map, which has really dark squares if you spent a lot of time in, and lighter squares if you haven't. The students can also see what days of the week they're in most, how much time are they spending in there, and are they posting in discussion forums and commenting on announcements if they can do that. So they can just get some quick information, and you can as well, about their activity in the system. They can also take a look at their progress through the resources and the activities that the teacher has laid out for them. It's an overall view here, and then they can dig into any that perhaps they haven't completed that they should, or resources they haven't looked at that they might want to. So that right there is pretty much the overview of the student look. You'll also want to make sure that the student does have messaging capabilities in the system to message back and forth with their teacher. So if there are any issues with the work that's been given to them or any struggles that they're having, they want to make sure to communicate with their teacher as much as possible. I'm going to now head over to the parent portal view. So the parent portal looks different. It is designed specifically for the parent in mind. If that is turned on in your district, this is what you will see when you log in. This is Patricia, Annabelle's mother. Annabelle has some brothers, so Patricia can get to those as well. She's going to dig into Annabelle now, though. When she looks here, she sees a course overview, so all of the courses that her daughter is a member of, and she'll see 4 icons. And those icons are explained down here. The first is the assessments, then that personal report that I showed you on the student page, mom and dad also have a look at, and then plans and a standards report. I'll dig into those in just a minute. They can also view Annabelle's profile. If Annabelle's working in an e-portfolio, and there are some districts that make nice use of that, parents can look into that as well, see any events that are happening, and see the tasks that their students need to do. So they may look at these overdue tasks, the tasks that are due in a few days, the tasks with no deadline. If something's overdue, they can certainly have a nice conversation about getting that done. The parents also see completed tasks and how the student did on those completed tasks. So there's lots of information here for mom and dad to take a peek at. I'll jump into an example of these 4 reports just so you can see what they look like. If there is grading being done, and I know districts have relaxed grading, so there might not be, but if there's grading being done, the parents can jump in here and see the results of that, what score it was, and any comments the teacher made. This personal report, again, the one that looks like a line graph, you remember that from the student's view of the personal report. Mom and dad also have a look at that through the parent portal. Mom and dad can also get to the teacher's plans. So remember that plan that the student had the start button? This is the parent view of that plan. So the parents know what the teacher is expecting of the students. Depending on the district setup, parents may be able to launch this page, for instance, and be able to help the student with those Georgia regions. Might be able to launch the quiz and assignment, but cannot do them. They will never be able to launch a discussion because of security and privacy issues of the other students. Now, some districts turn this off completely, so the students can just have a view of, or the parents can just have a view of this, but not click into any of that. And then lastly is the standard report. If that's important to the parent, they can take a peek at the standards that the student is working on and see any that they meet, they do not meet, or that have not been assessed. And in this case, these have not been assessed yet. Parents also have access to the messaging system. So if there is a need to message the teacher, they certainly can message the teacher back and forth. All right, so that is the view of the student's workflow if you're shoulder surfing, and the parent's workflow if you have access to the parent portal. So the second piece of the webinar is thinking through just those basics of general tips to help your child during this period of learning remotely. And we've divided them into 4 sections. And working with teachers and working with kids, these kind of float to the top. So you'll definitely want some sort of routine and breaks built into your day. So we want to maintain a schedule for any required learning activities, but also build in time for choice activities as well. Of course, during this time period, because parents are working at home and there are other children in the home, that schedule can be as flexible as the situation dictates. And then be certain to build in break and snack times as they're learning at home. Take a moment to share an apple, take a walk, do a craft. But it is important to have some of that structure in place. You'll want to stay connected. So to stay connected with your child's teacher, as well as other parents who are going through what you're going through. For instance, the senior parents are going through something very different than the kindergarten parents would be going through. And there's definitely strength in numbers. Helping your child stay connected with her friends, his or her friends, and teachers as well. The child needs to maintain connection with that teacher because I'm sure they both miss each other. That's done through phone, through video chats. Teachers are setting those up now for the students. And just to remember that we're all in this together to help each other through this time. The third piece is to search for teachable moments in your day that might not be related to a typical educational setting. So perhaps teaching your child to cook a family recipe, learn about something you do at your job, understand how to care for a pet, learn how to garden or take care of the plants. So lots of teachable moments that the students can learn so many life skills at this time. And then the fourth piece is to make sure to enjoy time together as a family, to switch off the technology, go a bit old school and play a board game, complete a puzzle, or head on outside to do something together. So with that, we get to our third part, which is chatting with our parents that we have online. I'll just kind of introduce to you who I have, and then we'll have them tell us a bit about the ages of their children, their experience with virtual learning so far, what they might be doing to help their children, any tips, pro tips that they have. So the first person that I'll bring up in just a minute is Nick. He's out of Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation in Indiana. Andrea is from Texas. Her children go to school there. Scott from Georgia. And then if there's time, I'll certainly wrap up. I'm also in Georgia with my daughter and her working through remote learning. So Nick, if you're there.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Can.
All right. So I have a 8th grade daughter and a 5th grade daughter. So one's in elementary and one's in middle school. And to the credit of my family, my wife is doing most of the work with them throughout the day. But our district is doing e-learning 3 days a week. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I can't reiterate enough about some of the tips that Rachel already pointed out. Routine has been a key, and the teachers in our district are available for questions from 9 to 3 from Tuesday to Thursday. So making sure that the girls are at least engaged part of that time, but we have built-in breaks for lunch and brain breaks and physical activity breaks, social emotional type of just making sure their well-being is thought of as well. And then we also have them on somewhat of a routine Monday and Fridays as well. I think some of the most important lessons we've learned in our district and talking to parents and from our girls as well is just making sure that everyone is flexible and that communication with the teacher is key. So if you have any questions about the expectations for the day, use that messenger or email or whatever communication method that teacher has set up to let them know that you're trying, or just have any questions, because if you have a question, most likely other parents or students do in that class. And then, every once in a while, there's just going to be a bad day, and almost all of these lessons should be able to be completed at any time. It should be asynchronous. So at least in our district, we have students on from morning till well past midnight. And depending on family situations, our teachers know that they can complete those assignments potentially on the weekend, or maybe even just during that 9 to 3 time. So flexibility is extremely important, I think, for our families and for our educators. And then kind of with that said, that anytime, anywhere, if you just need to delay and get something done another day, then don't hesitate to do that. I think a lot of teachers are trying to connect with their students, maybe through Hangout or some type of tool that will get them face to face. it's important that you guys jump in some of those to have that connection, that social connection too with their friends. But if you miss one here and there, don't put extra pressure on yourselves or your kids if the timing is just not right for you. So keep those things in mind as you go through it. And we're all in this together. We just finished our 4th week, just started our 5th, which is about halfway for us through this whole online learning that we're all just kind of in together.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. It's definitely words of wisdom. Andrea from Texas.
Hello, how is everyone tonight? I hope everyone is well. My children I have a 7th grade daughter and a sophomore son. And for the most part, my children are pretty self-sufficient with their remote learning. We do have a schedule that I very frequently have to remind my teenagers not to sleep all day, but they have a schedule. They're supposed to get up and log in and check everything every morning. Our district has assignments that are typically open like on Monday, and then they're due Sunday. So I basically, my district does have the parent portal. So I log into the parent portal pretty much every day, every afternoon, sometimes every other day. And I love utilizing the tasks section. That's all I pretty much look at right now. Most of my daughter's teachers have taken off the due dates on things. So everything's just like in one big list. So I just go down the list and ask her, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? My son's teachers still have due dates because they're trying to keep him on pace. He's the high schooler. So even though they're not penalizing the students for turning things in late, they still have due dates to kind of keep their pacing. That's very helpful because then I know, because it shows up on that task, if there's something overdue or something he didn't do this week. So basically I log in and take a look at that task. And if you don't have the parent portal, your students have that same kind of look that Rachel showed in the student view on their home tab, where they just have, you know, what to do now or this week or next week or what's overdue. So that's pretty much what I do just to keep my kiddos on task, because I just keep reminding them, you know, that you have things to do and have you done this. And the pacing is what I found has been the most difficult for them, trying to figure out, you know, what number of assignments are they supposed to be doing each day? How long should they spend? Kind of keeping that pacing to make sure that they get everything done by the end of the week. So I kind of help them with that pacing, and, you know, we kind of sit down at the beginning of the week and say, well, it looks like you have X number of assignments, you know, kind of divvy those out. This assignment looks a little bit longer, so make sure you give that extra time. So really, I just help them with pacing and timing. But my kiddos are older, so they don't need as much standing over as some of the younger ones would. And so I would think that mainly tips, just like what Nick explained, it's communication with the teacher. You know, my kiddos have the ability to use the instant messaging within It's Learning to instant message their teachers. Their teachers are checking messages and emails throughout the day as well. So, you know, the communication with the teacher is key. Sometimes, you know, the assignments are a little different, and maybe it's not a traditional assignment and my student had missed it. And so that communication with the teacher is definitely key. So that would be, I guess, my biggest tip is just communication with that parent or with that teacher, and just making sure to stay on task so that you don't have everything piled up at the end of the week.
Great advice. Thank you, Andrea. And Scott. Scott in Georgia.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I have a 15-year-old son, his sophomore in high school, and our district uses the parent portal. So what I basically do is I'll kind of log in the morning and see what he's got, you know, in terms of assigned work for that day. Because he's 15, he doesn't usually see the world before noon, but when he gets up, as he's having his breakfast, I'll, just kind of talk through with him what he's got planned for the day. And the biggest thing for me is just kind of helping him take ownership of his learning through the instant messaging with the teachers. If he's not understanding something, making sure he's speaking up and asking for that help. To me, it's a good experience to get him ready, to go off to college in a few years when he's going to have to do this on his own fairly regularly. And so I don't really get involved with talking to the teachers or things of that nature. I focus more on just making sure he's kind of completing his tasks. And, if I need to, we'll sit down together and look through things. But for the most part, he prefers to learn this way anyway. So it kind of speaks to him as a learner.
Thanks, Scott. And I'll just wrap it up. I do have a freshman daughter here in Georgia. I am fairly lucky in that she's a pretty good self-starter. So what I basically do with her, we have a daily check-in. The time varies because, as Scott mentioned, she gets up a little bit later now that she doesn't have to be at school at a certain time. So she starts her work a little bit later. And I check in daily with her, what assignments, are pending, what she hasn't done, what she's accomplished, and if there's any reason for her to reach out to a teacher to make sure that she does so. And tips for me, it's a really fluid situation, and I think we have to be, kind to ourselves and kind to our children and give them, cut everybody, including ourselves, some slack in this. It's an unprecedented time for us, and we're all trying to do our best and trying to be moms, dads, teachers. So I think to try to be, kind of forgiving and cut that slack, and we'll all get through this together. I appreciate my friends giving their tips and views on what everyone is going through. So just a couple things. I was given this by a friend actually this morning, and I thought it was a nice way to wrap this up. To think about these points as daily exercises for both you and your children. Clean one thing or one space. I'm sure we all are able to do that, and our kids able to do that. To make sure every day we tend to something growing or living, whether that's plants, a pet. Try to be mindfully present to a sound, a song, or something you see. Reach out to somebody outside your home, a video chat, a phone call, a text to grandma or an aunt, an uncle, a brother. Do something to get your heart rate up. Do one thing you'll be glad you did later. One thing just because you want to, and we all want to make sure we get in at least one good laugh a day. And finally, you will get a recording of this webinar as well as this 2-page document that my colleague Scott has put together. These are some really great resources from some reputable sources. Educational resources, but also just general resources that will help you in this, really kind of strange time that we're all living in. Helping our kids through this, helping ourselves through this. So you'll get a copy of that recording and a copy of this within 24 hours of this webinar. So I thank everybody for joining us this evening. I know you're all busy and have a lot of things to do, but I certainly appreciate the time, and we'll wait around for just a little bit. If anybody has any questions or thoughts that they want to put in the question box, we'll be here. Scott will tell some jokes. Just kidding.
Rachel, right now we don't have any questions, but we'll give everybody just a second to think and take some time to type those into the question box if they need to. And Scott can tell a joke.
Scott, where's your jokes?
I think I left them in my other backpack.
Yeah, we have 1 more minute left, so we'll give them a little bit more time. And if there are no questions, we will adjourn for the evening. And I will take time again. Once again, thank you, Nick Williams. Always a pleasure to have your wisdom, and Andrea and Scott as well.
Glad to be here.
And all of you parents for joining us. You're all doing a great job in this crazy world.
Rachel, I don't see any questions. I think we're good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and stay well and stay safe out there, and kudos to all that you're doing for your kids. Thanks, everybody.